Hello, and thank you for tuning in to On Top of PR. I'm your host, Jason Mudd. Today, we're talking about commercial newswires, why they work, when they work, how they work, and when they don't. I think this is a great episode. I'm glad you've tuned in. As you're listening, be thinking of a friend or colleague that would benefit from this episode, and please be sure to share it with them.
Welcome to On Top of PR with Jason Mudd. This solocast episode is brought to you by media monitoring company Burrells. Learn more at burrells.com/ontopofpr. And now, here's Jason Mudd.
Hello and welcome to On Top of PR. I'm your host, Jason Mudd from Axia Public Relations. Today we are recording a solo cast. That's where it's just you and me, and we're talking about public relations. I'm sharing some unique tips, trends, and topics that are relevant to you, where you are in your role with your organization, and just trying to add and give value to you and add back to the profession and enhance the profession. Today I want to talk to you about commercial newswires. When I talk about commercial newswires, I always get some strong opinions and feedback, and people are always interested. So let's talk about that for just a minute today, you and I. But before we do that, I want to welcome Burrells as the sponsor of our solo cast, and we thank them for supporting us. And we also want to mention that they have a special offer for new customers and current customers when you mention that you heard them on Top of PR. So if you go to burrells.com/ontopofpr, check out that special offer. We thank them for their sponsorship and underwriting this program. We look forward to bringing you a great episode here. So speaking of commercial newswires, there's a common perception that commercial newswires are a great way to generate earned media. And there's also a perception that they're a great way to generate clickbacks and good search engine optimization. Let's talk about those things for a moment. I would tell you that it's probably been 15 or 20 years, maybe more. I would say that newswires were a great way to get your news in front of newsrooms. And why I say that is because there's a huge perception in the marketplace among entrepreneurs, small business, maybe even some PR people, certainly among some marketing folks, that if they put their press release or their news release on a commercial newswire, which you pay to have done, that differentiates from a newswire like AP and Reuters and other newswire services, right, where it's actual earned media. But in this case, what we're talking about is commercial newswire services like Business Wire, PR Web, and PR Newswire. So you're paying this service basically to post your news release onto their newswire. And then in return, what they're doing is an element of distribution where they're distributing it to newsrooms for you. And that's the part that I want to focus on here initially. And then the second part of what they do is they also post it as like a syndicate or a feed onto hundreds of news websites all over the United States and maybe even worldwide, depending on what package you opt into, where those websites, those incredible news websites, are just embedding that content right inside their news website, like a feed, of which to the average consumer who sees it, they have no idea that it's a feed, or they generally don't realize that it's a feed. And to that end, it's a great way to get a lot of links and a lot of coverage very quickly of your announcement in front of a lot of consumers. And so my point in this solo cast is to point out to you that that's the primary benefit in my mind in the current environment for commercial newswires, is very quickly, instantly, and overnight getting your news story in front of thousands and maybe even millions of individuals and consumers through getting hundreds of news websites to post this newswire or your news release post immediately onto their website. It's all done automatically. There's no manual labor involved. There's no human involvement per se. So I'm mentioning this to help you understand that, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you put your news release on a newswire, it gets sent out and distributed to newsrooms everywhere, and that might turn into news coverage if your news story was newsworthy, if it had the 10 elements of news, and especially today, if you were a household name brand or a name brand that people recognize, which generally speaking means that you're a $1 billion corporation. So Tesla, GM, Microsoft, Starbucks, BMW, Disney, maybe even, Tommy Bahama or Nike, just a brand that you would recognize as a household name. Yes, there are dedicated beat writers or reporters whose full-time job is to cover these companies and to focus on these companies. These billion-dollar brands automatically get media attention. And a lot of publicly traded companies, they have to post to commercial newswires for disclosure reasons. As a publicly traded company, they have to make sure they're getting their public notice out there. And the way that they do that is through posting to commercial newswires. What I see a big mistake happening is when small businesses or businesses who are not publicly traded, who are not household brands, they think, oh, I'll just buy a package of Newswire post and I'll post our news to the Newswire and we'll get media coverage. And you will get media coverage in the sense I described. You'll get news coverage that appears as a feed on hundreds of websites instantly. And then some of those will stay permanently on those websites. But some websites have it set up where those will go away in a few days, in a week, in a few weeks, in a few months. Again, some will keep it there forever, but oftentimes what I'm finding or what we're seeing is that a lot of those articles fade away over time, and so they're not permanent links. So my theory is I like Newswires and I use them. We use them at our agency, but it's always kind of the last item, the last budget item, the last line item, the last investment, the last dollar. And a comprehensive campaign, absolutely, that's part of the program. Is that the one thing you post? You write a news release, you post on the wire, and you're done? No, not at all. That's not the right approach at all. If dollars were limited, I would spend more of my dollars spending more time doing media pitching, picking up the phone, teasing a news story, asking for permission to send a news release than I would putting a story on a wire. But in a comprehensive, perfect world scenario, yes, that last building block, that last piece of a commercial newswire placement, absolutely love it. We do it all the time. Our primary go-to commercial newswire is PR Newswire, only because we get really good pricing for PR Newswire. But I think, in my opinion, candidly, I think the best business wire out there right now is our commercial newswire right now is Business Wire. I think they have an outstanding product. People ask me, do we use PR Web? No, we really don't. When PR Web first started, it was a free service, and we were power users of it. In fact, they once gave me the email address, jason@prweb.com, just to encourage me to kind of be a brand influencer for them or something like that. And I ended up using that for like personal email, not really for work purposes. But yeah, PR Web was a good service, when it first started, when it was free. Now it's owned by Cision, who also owns PR Newswire. And to be candid, I don't really keep track of PR Web and its current offerings today. But it's just another example of a type of paid or commercial newswire that you can post stories to. So, if it's a tool, like any tool, it has pros and cons. If you're doing it for link backs and search engine optimization, my sense is, and we all know Google's pretty proprietary and doesn't always share publicly what they do and why they do it. But in my experience, Google can kind of figure out that it's a feed of a news release that's appearing on a lot of websites. It's not an organic or earned media story. It's not unique. Uniquely written by that outlet. And so you may not be enjoying the SEO link back, juice for those news posts as you might have been sold on or you might think is valuable. I still think there's some value, obviously, in having a lot of link backs. There's some value in those links being highly accessible to consumers to easily, be able to go view your product or view your website or view the content directly on the shared or owned media that you are promoting. In addition, the other thing I just kind of wanted to talk about on this subject is, the go into a little more detail. When you're talking about newswires, there's the commercial newswires where you pay. Then there's the other newswires that newsrooms subscribe to that are, authentic news that can't be bought, like the Associated Press, Reuters, and certainly others like the Dow Jones Newswire and things like that. So I just kind of want to share that with you. In my mind, the example I give is it's kind of the cherry on top of a PR program. So if you're of that mindset that, well, we tried Newswires and they didn't really work for us, I think they worked just fine. It just might be what your expectations were. You might have thought, I'm going to write a news release, I'm going to post it on a wire, and the media is going to start calling and covering. And that's not a good expectation unless you've just got something incredibly newsworthy. And more importantly, not only of the 10 elements of news, but of those 10 elements of news, the one you're really focusing on is the prominence of the corporation, the prominence of the celebrity or whatever it might be that you're associating your announcement with. Now, again, if you're a publicly traded company, you've got a disclosure obligation. That's why you're using the wire service a lot of the times. But if you're not public and you're a private corporation or maybe in a nonprofit entity, if you've got the excess dollars, definitely use that PR commercial Newswire post to exhaust all your options. If you're on a frugal shoestring budget, if you don't have the ability to hire a PR pro or to make the actual media pitches and do them right, then sure, the Newswire is a good option for you. But if you've got a trained professional, whether it's yourself or someone else or an agency that can do that work for you, then absolutely focus on the pitching. But so I'm a fan of commercial Newswires as long as those expectations are realistic. I used to have a colleague who worked at Disney, and because she worked at Disney, she thought commercial Newswires were fabulous and fantastic. What the missing ingredient that she did not quite understand it was because Disney was on the letterhead or at the top or the masthead of each of these news releases. And, when Disney or Tesla or somebody that's a household name, when they speak, people listen. If you're just a small business or medium business or, a tech company that's not really well known and whatnot, you're probably not going to have that same outcome. So those were my thoughts that I thought were important to share with you during this brief solo cast today. Was just kind of getting our arms around the idea of what commercial Newswires are, why they work, where they work, how they work, and candidly, when they don't work. So if this is something you'd like to talk more about, drop us a line. We'd be happy to address it with you. We want to thank our friends and colleagues over at Burrell's for sponsoring this episode. I'm Jason Mudd from Axia Public Relations. It's really my job to keep you on top of PR, which is why we created this podcast, which is why we do every 5th episode as a solo cast. And if you've got a topic you'd like to hear us talk about on a solo cast, let us know. Just contact us and say, I've got a request for an upcoming solo cast. We would love to hear from you. We'd be happy and honored to answer that question. As I'm wrapping up here, in addition to going to burrells.com/ontopofpr and take a look at their special offer, I also want you to visit our website, axiapr.com and /hack of the week. And if you're not subscribed to our hack of the week, I really think you should. I think you're going to love it. We've got some great content there that we're producing every week where we're sharing a topic, tip, or trend that we think would be relevant to you and make your life easier, whether you're a full-time practitioner of public relations, whether it's just part of your job description, whether you work in an agency, a nonprofit, a for-profit, or even a government entity. You're going to learn from these quick blast. Sometimes we've got a video attached to them, but I mean, it literally takes like 30 seconds to read it. And I think it provides a lot of value to you. So that's axiapr.com/hack of the week. Check that out. Let us know what you think. And again, thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. And thank you to Burrell's Luce for sponsoring this episode. Be well.
This has been On Top of PR with Jason Mudd. Many thanks to our solo cast sponsor, Burrell's, for making this episode possible. Burrell's has a special offer just for On Top of PR fans. Check it out at burrells.com/ontopofpr.